My name's Kia Shorey, and my guest this morning is a man you're going to be hearing more and more from over the first half of this year, the 30th Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Scott Morrison. Welcome to ABC Far North Queensland.
Well, g'day, Kia. It's great to be here in the studio. Great to be here in Cairns again.
Now, elections clearly in the air when the Prime Minister comes to town bearing gifts. Now, you brought some money for the tertiary stage of the hospital project here in Cairns, heading to Cooktown today. What can they expect?
Well, this is not my first visit to Cairns, here many times. Last time I was here last year, it was $10 million for the innovation hub out there at JCU. Yesterday, you rightly, we announced $60 million for the free up 150 beds, 150 new beds at the hospital, but also which sees the great work of JCU and their tropical medicine centre continue on. That's fantastic. We're heading up to Cooktown today, 250th anniversary of the voyage of Lieutenant James Cook, went on to be Captain James Cook, and he stopped in two places along the east coast. One was in my electorate of Cook down there in southern Sydney in Kurnell, and the other one, a much longer stay, as Warren Entsch reminds me all the time, up here in North Queensland, where he maintains he had a much better time. So I'm looking forward to going up there. There's a lot of excitement about that 250th anniversary, and we're investing in a range of local projects, upgrades for tourist infrastructure, parks, these sorts of things, which commemorate those events, but also announcing the voyage, the re-enactment of the voyage that will call in all around the east coast of Australia for the 250th anniversary. That'll be great for tourism, and it'll also be a great opportunity just to talk about our history of the view from the shore, the view from the ship, and very much understanding those two stories, like we do in my home electorate every year with our Meeting of Two Cultures ceremony on the 29th of April. I think this voyage will provide an opportunity to tell those shared stories. And
the money that you're bringing for them, around $5.75 million, I understand?
That's about that for both projects.
And so do you know what the money will be spent on?
Yeah, the $5.8 million that we're spending up in Cooktown, that includes the reconciliation of the Rocks Precinct, the development of the botanical gardens, the upgrades to the Gourmet Dreaming Track, and the Wumbera Story project. There's a range of those local projects which will help people when they go to that part of the country to be able to learn the stories, understand the stories from both an Indigenous perspective and from a European perspective. And I think that's one of the things people love coming to Australia to do, to just understand our stories. And we've got, great stories. Some of them are hard, some of them are magnificent, but we've got to tell them all.
As you fly to Cooktown today, you're going to be flying over the World Heritage listed Daintree rainforest. Now, there was a federal parliamentary committee last year that recommended the Bloomfield track be sealed. Now, this is a section of track that runs through that rainforest, and there's been plenty of people who are involved in the initial fight to get it listed 30 years ago on the World Heritage list, saying that it shouldn't happen. So should the federal government be investing money in conservation of the area rather than development of the area, Prime Minister?
Look, we're proceeding cautiously here. Warren and I had a good discussion about this as well as with some locals, and there's nothing immediately proceeding there. Protecting those conservation values is incredibly important, and but also providing the opportunity for people to experience these incredible areas. I mean, the two have to be done together. I know there's a lot of different views here in the community about what needs to be done there, so we'll keep listening.
Okay. You personally supported the coal industry. People might remember you bringing that piece of coal into Parliament on that occasion a couple of years ago.
Lots of jobs.
Sure. Now, in our area, though, reef, rainforest, environmentally set, sort of many environmental assets as well. Do you think the government's approach to environment, to climate change, could potentially cost votes in Leichhardt?
No, I don't, because we're meeting our commitments. We've set our commitments. We have met Kyoto 1. We will comfortably smash Kyoto 2, and I believe we'll meet 2030, our targets there, which we've set, and I've reassured actually Pacific leaders about that just last week as well. We have plans to achieve it. We will achieve it. The thing about Australia and our commitments on emissions reduction is we actually make them and achieve them. I don't go around talking about them every day. We just go around doing them every day and make sure we achieve them. So, we've got those programs in place. We will continue. We share the concern about the impacts of climate change, not just about addressing its causes, but also addressing its impacts here, right around our region in particular, where those impacts can be more severe, but also in supporting the scientific research that we have up here into the reef. I mean, the reef is both one of our most amazing environmental assets, and it's a livelihood for a large number of Australians, particularly living up here in North Queensland. And managing and balancing those interests is important. But I believe everybody's job's important, whether it's working in the mining sector, whether it's working in the environmental sector, whether it's working in hospitals, whether it's working in small business. All of their jobs are important, and I want to keep them in all of their jobs.
Okay, so when the Leichhardt's fight, Warren Entsch is going up against a female candidate. Do you have enough women running in winnable seats across the country?
Well, I'd always like more. What I want, though, is the best people to continue to take on the task that we've set ourselves. I mean, over the last 5.5 years, we've created over 1 million jobs as a government, and we've had record growth in youth jobs. I mean, here alone in Leichhardt, in this part of Australia, we've seen the youth unemployment rate fall from 28% to 15.6% since the last election. Now, that's great news. That's great news for parents who are worried about their kids getting jobs. It's great news for people coming out of school. And the strength of our economy here, supported not just, I should say, by the tourism and hospitality industry, which has always been key to this part of Australia, but the growing and burgeoning health sector, human services sector. This is why we've been investing in James Cook University. I mean, this is a tropical capital, not just for Australia, but for the region.
But do you have enough women running in winnable seats? I mean, you said you'd like to have more, so that means you don't feel you have enough?
We have our candidates set as we go in, and we've got a strong female representation, and there are more seats to fill between now and the next election. But, you know, I've got 6 women in my cabinet. That's the highest number under our government, and they're all very capable women and doing a fantastic job. But you know what's important for women? That the gender pay gap has actually fallen to its lowest level on record, that the female workforce participation level is at the highest level on record, that we've been addressing the costs of childcare, that we're investing $350 million already in addressing domestic violence, and we'll move forward to our 4th action plan to do just that, keeping women safe, keeping women having economic choices and opportunities. I want women to have more choices in life. Many are trying to create those choices for themselves and can feel frustrated. I want them to be able to break through that barrier so they live the life that they choose to live.
Jeff Kennett, the often outspoken Mr. Kennett.
Jeff's always good for some
advice. He suggests that people like Kevin Andrews, Julie Bishop should be stepping aside to let new talent come through, potentially some of those new women into winnable seats, potentially. So does he have a point?
Look, I like the blend of experience. I mean, take Warren. I mean, Warren has been so central, Warren Entsch here, in the development of Cairns of what it is today and North Queensland. I mean, over his time, and I'm not talking about big road projects and things like this, he told me yesterday over $4 billion worth of investment he's been able to shepherd into this part of the country. And he is both a champion for North Queensland, but a great mentor to many of my colleagues, and particularly those new ones who are coming in, like Senator Amanda Stoker. She's our most recent member coming in for Queensland, taking up from when George Brandis went out. So a bloke out and a highly talented woman coming in. And so you've got someone like Amanda, full of passions, full of vision for the future, and you've got people like Warren, who've got the experience and the burning passion still, and a plan for North Queensland. And that's why I just back Warren in, because he knows what to do here, because he's so connected.
Speaking of Julie Bishop, she's talked about her potentially recontesting as well. Have you spoken to her about that? And in fact, would there be a position for her on your front bench?
Oh, well, I offered her one when I became Prime Minister, and she decided she didn't want to proceed with it at that time. So I respect her decision. I respect her choice. and she'll make her choices, and I'll respect those choices. She's said she's intending to run, and she's pre-selected, and she's running out there now. So that's what she said on the record.
Okay, let's just turn our attention to the current crisis happening in the Murray-Darling Basin as well. That idea that Labor's now going to work with those independent scientists, that plan that Bill Shorten put forward. The government knocked back a request essentially for you to be involved in supporting that particular program. Why?
This is politics. I mean, the Murray-Darling Basin Plan, this is a very serious and sensitive issue, and it's been a bipartisan initiative for many, many years. And David Littleproud, as your listeners may have heard, as he was being interviewed on AM just before this program, was working closely with Tony Burke. I mean, the scientific evidence and research that is currently forming the Murray-Darling Basin Plan was actually done under Labor. Now, I'm not criticising that work. I mean, we were using that work that they did, and we've worked in a cooperative and bipartisan way. An election comes up, and Bill Shorten wants to take advantage. And I just think that's the wrong way to approach it. We will be taking advice from the experts, and we'll continue to do that. The Minister will have more to say about that on that today. But on top of that, as you can see, the meetings are taking place between the environmental licence holders, the water managers. The New South Wales government are the ones who manage the water flows in that part of the country, and we'll work closely to support them as well. It's a very serious issue. I know it's very distressing.
So are you worried about what the scientists might potentially discover?
No, I'm not at all. I would like to be informed by the work that we will do. But I'm not going to engage in those sort of theatrics from Bill Shorten. I mean, you just can't trust him with this stuff. He always flicks the switch to the politics on this. We've had such good bipartisanship on this, and he just wants to turn it over for political purposes, and I find that very disappointing.
You're on ABC Local Radio, ABC Far North, across Far North Queensland. My name's Kia Shorey, and we are with the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, here this morning. Let's talk a little bit just about the impending election as well. I mean, just a few days of Parliament left, the delivery of the budget, calling the election. What are the priorities in this short time frame that we have leading up to the election?
Well, you're right. We'll have a budget. We'll hand out a budget on the 2nd of April. It'll be the first surplus budget this country's seen in 12 years. And this will be very important for the country. And the reason, I mean, we've been pulling this budget back now over the last 5 years. And I think one of the big questions this election is, in 2007, the country decided to go to Labor, to go to Kevin Rudd. We have spent the last 10 years fixing that. What they did to the budget, what they did to the borders, what they did to social welfare and its expansion and welfare dependency increasing, we've turned all that around over the last 5 years. So we've spent 5 years cleaning up Labor's mess, and we want to now get on with the plans for our plans for a stronger economy, because, you know, if you don't have a stronger economy, you can't afford healthcare. You can't afford these schools. The reason I can come and announce $60 million for Cairns Hospital here is because we've got a stronger economy. Bill Shorten will come up here and he'll say the same thing, but he's taxing you more for it. And he's going to use federal higher taxes to subsidise a Labor state government that can't manage money. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'll hold state governments to account. I'm not going to throw money at them when they can't manage their budget, so they want us to throw money from ours. They need to do their job. We need to do our job. And we'll get on with the job of managing the nation's finances so we can provide life-saving drugs like we did for lung cancer on the weekend. $96 million, life-saving lung cancer drugs that help people have a quality of life. And I met a patient, Bruno, who's been on it for the last 2.5 years. 3 young kids. $96 million means an 8,000 script is now going to cost $40.30. That's why I believe in a strong economy, and that's my number one priority with keeping Australians safe and keeping us together.
We've had a few callers ringing in as well asking about ABC funding too, and these are people from more regional locations as well who aren't serviced by as many other media outlets. So they're just asking, what's your take on the ABC funding? Would you have plans to restore it? Would you have plans to lessen it more?
Well, it doesn't need to be restored because it hasn't been cut. I mean, its funding is not going backwards. It's actually being maintained. But I particularly want to commend the work that the regional ABC does. I mean, from my Liberal and National Party colleagues who represent regional electorates, I know that they greatly value the work that the ABC does in regional parts of the country. And it's great to have a local regional host here in Cairns. And that's fantastic as well. I think the service that it provides here in regional areas is outstanding.
But there has been a reduction. I mean,
No, there hasn't.
There hasn't been?
No, there hasn't.
In real terms?
No, there's been no reduction in funding. We asked the ABC to actually do the same thing that every single department and agency has to do in terms of efficiency dividend, which they weren't required to do for years and years and years. And so that's what impacts on the forward estimates. But the ABC gets a good budget, it gets a strong budget, and it does a good job with that budget. And, if I have to choose between, financing and supporting lung cancer drugs and some other opportunities, guess what I'm going to choose? $60 million for hospital in Cairns.
So, Prime Minister, can I ask about the Australia Day stuff as well? Well, it's coming up this weekend. You're going to be out there in far north Queensland in the heat and the humidity. You've made those propositions about maintaining it being, when councils can actually do the ceremonies have to be then. This idea of banning shorts, thongs, those sorts of ideas too. Why legislation like that? Why spending time and stuff like that?
It's part of a code. I used to be the immigration minister. I used to, it's my signature on many Australian citizenships today, and I had someone who bumped into me in Kakadu the other day actually and mentioned that to me, and they wanted to say good day. I just want the ceremony to be treated with respect. I've been to many, many of these ceremonies around the country, and the vast majority of the new Australians who become Australians on that day do just that. But just dress appropriately is my point. You know, don't come look like you've just got out of bed. That's not showing respect. Citizenship is the most important gift a country can give anyone. Now, I wouldn't turn up to my kids' graduation in thongs and boardies. I wouldn't do that. I'd certainly be wearing that at the party afterwards or at the barbecue or down at the beach. Of course I'd do that. But this is an important institution. Citizenship should be respected. And it's about respect for your fellow citizens who are becoming citizens on that day, as well as respect for the institution itself. So, look, it's a common sense rule. I think there should be a standard, and I think people want standards for things like that.
Well, Prime Minister, I know you need to leave, so
No
I
worries.
do appreciate your time this morning. Enjoy your trip to Cooktown as well, and we'll be hearing more from you as you deliver your announcements there today.
Thanks a lot, Kev.
And I'm
Great
sure
to
we'll
hear.
see you again, right?
I look forward to it.
Can you put us out of our misery? Everyone has to ask you at the end, right? When will the election be?
After
Prime
the
Minister? After the budget. Okay, that's pretty fair.
That's not too bad.
Thank you very much.
And well done to the Taipans last night.
Yeah,
Cheers.
thanks, Prime Minister.